My friend Rika Drew sent me one of Glenn Beck's shows, the Founding Fathers things he does, and I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit just because I agree with some of what Glenn Beck says, but he's a little bit too much for me. But I started to watch it anyway, and it was about how black people in our history that had a lot to do with the way the founding of this country and what went on during the founding of this country have basically been eliminated from history books. And it did two things. It made me very emotional. Just because so many black people, including black people I know, only think that great things started with Martin Luther King, or, you know, I don't know how to put it. If anything in here comes across as insulting, it is not intended to be. This was just fascinating to me, not just because of the fact that these, like Frederick Douglass and other people, who of course their names escape me at this point, I'll put links up to this video, so if you want the information and the people's names, you can get it there. But just how important they were to the founding of this country and how easily it was to just destroy them. Or not destroy them, but make them irrelevant. It's sad. It's sad because that means there are many groups of black people that grew up only thinking their only history in this country was as being slaves. I'm sorry I'm looking all over the place, but I'm trying to gather my thoughts because this really got to me. But that's what most black people have been taught, is that up until they were freed as slaves, or not, excuse me, up until Martin Luther King and the fight for civil rights, that's when the fight for civil rights started, and that's really where a lot of black history started. I mean, I know people know about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad, but the stuff as far as that was all stuff with black people fighting against the government, or fighting against slavery is what I mean, fighting against the government. Whereas these were stories about black people actually wanting to be Americans and being proud of being Americans. And that's not something I ever remember hearing. And I can understand how a group of people, and I'll say it one more time, I don't mean this in any way to be insulting, but I can understand how if I was a member of a group of people, that the only thing I was ever taught as far as my relation to America was that I was a slave and I had to fight just to be treated like a human being, I wouldn't like that country very much. But if I knew that there were black people that after they were freed wanted to be Americans and were proud to be Americans and worked for this country and worked to do great things in this country, I think that would change some people's feelings. Now, it wouldn't change the perception of the way people are treating them now, and that's a whole nother video. But it's had an impact on me, and I'm a white person. Let me put it that way. I'm a white dude, in case you haven't noticed. And just hearing that, you know, Abraham Lincoln was meeting with some of these black people and asking their opinions. I never heard that. The only thing I knew about Abraham Lincoln having to do with black people for the most part was owning slaves and freeing slaves. That is on a totally different level than actually talking to black people on an equal level and asking for help. That was just fascinating information to me. And it makes me understand why, if someone intentionally took this out of history books, if they did that, why they would, because it makes black people feel separate from this country. And maybe that's what they wanted when they took this information out, was to make black people not feel like part of the country and to make white people not feel like black people were part of the country. That they were just this group of people that were slaves that got freed and just had to be integrated, instead of a group of people that really wanted to be Americans. Like I said, this obviously got to me. It got to me and made me very emotional. But I'm trying to keep, you see, I just say the word emotional, and emotions come up. Because it's just messed up. And I feel bad not having known this. It's important. I'm trying to be a better person, as everyone knows, but I also want to be knowledgeable about my own history and about my own country and why I love my country and why I like to be an American. And part of that is that a lot of the people that were brought here as slaves when they were freed decided, or were the descendants of people that were brought here as slaves, whatever, that decided they wanted to be Americans. That there were actually white people back in the day that worked with them. It wasn't just slaves versus white people, or former slaves versus white people, which is the way I feel history was presented to me when I was growing up. I think that's all I need to say. Once again, I will put up links to these videos. Anyone that watches this and can't stand Glenn Beck, I don't really like him a lot either. But trust me, the information, and maybe you already went, maybe you're more educated than me and you knew everything he's going to say. Fine, I didn't know it. And it was fascinating. So once again, this is the third ending. I feel like this is like Lord of the Rings or something. I'm going to put up links, and that's that. Great videos, great information, and great to know that black people played a more important part to American history than just what I learned in school.